So let me guess. You're driving.
I am not driving. I'm actually sitting at home.
Dude, hey, Andy, all I got to say is, real quick, first of all, thanks for taking the time and also the interest in, like, just like, you know, talking to all these bands and people from you know, back in the day. It's super cool because you've, you know, reignited some relationships and also just interest in that time, and also, you know, kind of brought some new music to what people are doing now, like, you know, back to people's ears that were, you know, a part of that time. So kudos to you, brother.
Thanks. I'm super excited that anybody wants to even listen to these conversations, and the whole point is just to get that excitement back and get ears on the music, you know, and get people listening to the music again. And those people that are lifers and, you know, still making music, you know, from Northern Virginia, you know, their music is still great. So I want people to hear it as much as possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, it looks like you're doing a great job, man. It's awesome. I just want to give you a virtual high five through the phone.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I mean, a big part of this, you know, was just I actually was secretly doing this just so I'd get a chance to talk to you guys. So mission accomplished.
All right, cool.
All right, well, let's get going. I don't know if an hour's going to cover it, but
yeah.
No way.
No
way. But yeah, let's take it all the way back. So, for each of you guys, like, how did you get started getting interested in music? Like, what was sort of that first thing or your earliest musical memories?
For me, my parents listened to music all the time. My dad played guitar. My brother played guitar. They raised my uncle. He played drums. I wasn't allowed to touch any of their stuff, so I started singing. Honestly, and I was just really into music, and then just kept going at it. And I remember I wanted a guitar really bad, and the first thing I got was a keyboard. And I was like, that's not a guitar. And then I kept pushing for a guitar, and I got a bass. My parents bought me a bass, which was cool. And then finally my aunt just came to pick me up one day, and she's like, let's go get that guitar, and bought me a guitar. And I just kept working at it. I mean, so I guess probably when I was like 9 or 10, I was playing with like 2 other guys in our neighborhood, and it was just 3 guitars, you know, like everybody's just trying to learn how to play guitar, and started kind of from there. But I was just obsessed with music my whole life.
Yeah, and for me, like, I just, I was the youngest kid in my neighborhood. Everyone else was like metalhead, so I didn't really have too much choice on what music that I could listen to with everybody. And I was a little bit off from everybody else, but they were trying to put together like a neighborhood band, and there was no bass player, so I was like, all right, I'm going to play bass. So I went out and got a bass, and then I started with that, and then kind of branched off there, and just, you know, same thing, love of music, love, you know, the whole thing. And then, of course, you know, just, you know, the whole atmosphere is all fun and, you know, whatnot.
Where were each of those neighborhoods? Where were you guys living?
When I first started playing with people for real, I was in Prince William County, pretty much getting close to being out towards Woodbridge, like, or towards 95. I mean, but it was still Manassass technically. I mean, and you were in Reston.
Yeah, I was in Reston, like, you know, around Lake Ann area. So there were a lot of cats in my neighborhood too that played in little bands here and there, that you've probably interviewed as well. But yeah, man, so, you know, total Reston head, you know, in the thick of all the action, obviously Jam for Man action, you know, stuff like that.
I mean, what were you guys aware of in terms of the early sort of hardcore bands around town? and the early like Jam for Mans. Were you there at the first one?
So I was not at the first one. I actually played, I believe, in the second one, but not with Sun Monkeys, and it was with bands that were before the Sun Monkeys really got together and did stuff. It was just from other kids in the high school, just some random spin-offs that would play like one or two shows. I can't remember the names. I think one was Exit, and another was Bad Man Shadows or something like that. So we did a couple shows there, and I know one of them was, I think, at the second Jam for Man, but I can't remember specifically without, going back and looking at the flyers and whatnot.
Yeah, my first Jam for Man was us playing it.
I think it was like 3.
Yeah, that was my first one, and then we played a couple of them. They were fun. Yeah.
Yeah, they were awesome. I mean, to have that kind of, as you've already talked about before in your other podcasts, but camaraderie with all the musicians, and even though they all came from different areas, like, you had AVAIL, which was, the staple, of the, the punk, kind of, scene, at least for us as kids around there. But even though we were different than that, there was love for everybody, everyone was just like,
No, we all loved AVAIL. I mean, I think most of the people around them that were musicians at the time in the area just liked them. I mean, it was hard to not. Their energy was awesome.
Their energy was off the hook.
Yeah.
But you guys, were doing your own thing. You had influences, obviously, of punk rock, of go-go, of funk, of hip hop. How did all of those influences sort of come together, or where did you acquire a lot of that stuff from?
Well, it came together through a lot of fighting and yelling at each other and throwing guitars and stuff like that. I mean, to be honest, to meld all those things together didn't always go smoothly, but we all loved all that stuff. But I think it was just, I think throughout the history of the band, pretty much every band member we have ever had was very diverse in what they listened to. Like, I don't really think we ever had someone in the band who was just like, I like one thing, that's it, I just like this. We were always a band of people that liked, I mean, me and Aaron listened to lots of jazz and just anything. Like, if it's good music, we gravitate towards it and, do what we can with it. And we were lucky enough to have band members constantly that felt the same way. So then it was just more about how to stick it together to make something that worked, I think that would be the easiest answer for that. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Well, how did the band start? Like, what was the genesis of the band? Who kind of put it together?
I got to take this one. I can take it from. They started before me. You were already playing with Tom.
Yeah, I was already playing with Tom Brady.
And you'd already known Pete.
And I met Pete in summer camp. So, that was a weird stretch. And we pulled him after the fact later.
Yeah, so as it started for me, I had just got into high school, and Tom Brady had moved to Manassass. And I'm walking up the stairs one day, and this guy just comes up to me, and I don't know if you've ever met Tom, but he's excited. He's an excited guy. So he comes running up to me and grabs me and shakes me by the shoulders, and he's like, "Are you Zack Larkin?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Dude, I've been looking for you. Everybody says you're a good singer, you're a good front man. I need you to play for my band." And I was like, "Well, I already have a band, and I don't know that they're going to like that." But the band I was in at the time, we basically played pretty much metal music. And I like metal music, but that wasn't the be-all, end-all for what I thought I would be doing. And so I kept saying no to him because at the time, the drummer in our band, he had all the equipment and everything, and we were doing pretty good too. We had a couple of demos out, and he was basically like, nobody can play another band. So I didn't want to rock that boat because we had a good producer guy that ended up doing the Brotherhood album for Some Monkeys, and he was letting us have studio time and coming out and recording us at the house, and we had a good thing going. I was like, I want to rock this boat. And then one day my dad comes upstairs and he's like, there's 3 guys at the door and they want to see you, and one of them seems drunk. And there was actually Clay, who wasn't even your drummer, who was in Love Nuts, and Aaron and Tom. And I just walked down, got in the car with them. We went and jammed at the house, and I was like, all right, this is it. Like, I'm good. This is my new band. And then they were like, well, this guy's not going to be the drummer. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, this is good. Like, I'm in. And I was 14. So that was pretty interesting.
That's crazy. What was it about, like, the vibe of that first jam?
Aaron and Tom, you and Tom are really synced up and had it going on. Clay didn't really know the stuff as much because he was in more of a punk kind of band, but he did what he could do. And then after that, we got Tom Young, and he played with us for a while, but we were kind of waiting on Pete down the road. I mean, because even from the beginning, you guys were talking about him a little bit, you know, that maybe someday. But Tom was great. I mean, we were lucky to have good musicians in the band throughout our time. But really, it was just the tightness of it, and they were doing stuff that more fun, more all over. Like, I didn't want to be doing one kind of thing, and I think we all did. We all felt that way. Like, let's just do lots of different stuff. Like, why wouldn't we play go-go? Why wouldn't we play hip hop? Why would we not? You know. So.
Did you guys have songs? Like, did Tom and Aaron had you guys written things together before, or?
Yeah,
you know?
We definitely had some material that was stacked up a little bit. And of course, you know, as a musician, you know, you keep writing songs as you go along. But we definitely had a few in the pocket. Not necessarily that they were polished or what we used on any albums or anything, but you just have some songs and you move with them, and then, you know, if they're good to go, then you keep them around, and if you're tired of them after a while, and you're like, yeah, I think we need to retire this, you know, I'm just not fun playing, or it's just not up to the standards of where you're at, you know, at a future point in time. So, yeah, there was, I mean, and a lot of good stuff about what we did is we didn't really, everyone was such a good musician, we really didn't tell anybody else what to do. Of course, as a band, you know, we talked about what we wanted to do in the song, but we had trust in each of the members to do what was right in the song. And I think that that's where a lot of the freedom and good energy and like positive vibe came in, and that's where we came together kind of as a unit. And I think that theme stayed through mostly, you know, pretty much for the entire duration of the band.
Yeah, I think one of the first songs I can remember really getting started on, because the couple times we jammed, we just did pretty much straight covers, just to kind of get a feel for each other. And then, like, one of the first ones I can remember is Fried Eyed Pizza Man. Like, that was one of the first ones I could really remember us doing. Like, you and Tom worked it all out and brought it to us, and we were like, all right, let's do it.
I'm the genie of sound. Everybody get down.
Then once we started writing songs for real, then we just started writing songs for real. And pretty much after that, the covers were just like a one-off thing. Like, I want to play some random song, and we would know covers to be able to pull them out and just extend the set, or, you know, like we just wanted to do it because we loved it or something. But once we started the writing process, it was pretty much originals from then on.
Yeah.
And Fried Eyed Pizza Man is the first song on, basically, is Brotherhood the first album? I mean,
yeah.
So that's the first song on the first album. So that was the first one that came together, and there it is.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, we played for a while. Like I think our first show was at South Lakes, right? Like when they cut my mic off. They cut my mic off like 40 seconds into the first song, and I just yelled the whole time.
Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah, it sounds right.
They cut your mic off because they didn't like the lyrical content?
I don't even know. I think it might have just been a mishap, because like really back then the songs at that point we had were not really anything you would cut off. I mean, well, no, we played one song that night, but it wasn't maybe it was the first one. I can't even remember, but they cut it pretty quick.
Well, I mean, you guys did have songs with, you know, suggestive lyrical content, shall we say.
At the least, you can say.
and Fried Eyed Pizza Man being the least among them.
Yeah, no, that one wasn't at all. But I mean, you got to think at the time, like when I joined the band being 14, and the stuff we were listening to, there was tons of punk rock, tons of funk, you know, and there was lots of innuendo and stuff in that. And of course, when you're young and full of it, you want to push that envelope, you know. So we did. Yeah, I mean, there's no other way to put it. Like we just, especially in the beginning of the band. In the beginning of the band, we were much more aggressive with everything. Like the music had more punk rock elements and was more fire powered in that kind of way. Like there was just a lot of pent up energy. I mean, we were 14 to 16 years old, the entire band. And as we went along, it progressed and changed into different stuff. And with different bands, I mean, each time we changed a band member, the band changed like completely. Like we still do the old songs, but even those songs started to get.
We just had different feels.
Different change, different speed, little different things, and things just kept evolving, you know.
Where were the early shows other than, say, like South Lakes? Where were the places that you guys would be able to play?
So we played, I know Rashaad mentioned this before, but so we played at a place called Bender's down in Manassass. We played, I mean, a lot. We played there a lot.
It's called Chimmy's. That was in Manassass.
Was it Maxim's?
Yeah, Maxim's. We played the Wave. We had weird one-off shows. Like I remember doing and I totally forgot about this show, but we did some show for a radio station gig, and like for some reason I'm wearing overalls, weird pantyhose and a Santa hat. Like I don't even know why. But somebody had sent me that on Facebook, and I didn't even really remember it, but it was like a radio station. I mean, honestly, back then you take any gig you can really get. House parties.
Tons of house parties.
Yeah, tons of house parties. I mean, anywhere you can play, because for us, I mean, and it was a struggle with some monkeys the whole time. We were underage, you know what I mean? Like, and especially for me, I was underage for a lot of it, you know, and even by the time we got Josh in the band, he was underage. So some clubs it was tough, you know, like they wanted us to play, but it's a risk to them to even let us be hanging out, you know.
So were any of those places over 21, or were those all ages clubs?
Well, most of them were, I think, a lot of the places were bar, restaurant, places that had stages. We played DC Space. We did a gong show thing at 9:30. That was interesting. But really back then, in the early days, it was really just trying to find anywhere that would let us play. Because a lot of the places, especially Princeton County back then, they had a lot of rules against alcohol and music together. Like, they could have DJs, but not necessarily have bands if they had alcohol on those nights. So then, of course, a lot of the places didn't want to do the bands because they get so much money off of alcohol. And so we got lucky when the guy opened Vendors, because I mean, he was basically bringing us in kind of as a house band, like once or twice, as much as we wanted to play. I mean, really. And we played there. We did a show there with AVAIL, which is a funny story. And we did a show there with 311. And he was really cool. Like, I remember he gave me a book with all the bands that he could book through the booking agent he was working with. And I was like, all right, here you go. And Parliament was in there, and at the time, I think it was like either Parliament or P-Funk, one of their things, you know. And it was like $12,000 at the time to book them. And I'm like, book them. And I was like, we'll open. And he goes, okay. I booked 311. Like, he picked them because they sounded closest to what we were trying to do. He was just trying to find a fit, you know, for a good show, and got us 311. But we did do a show there with AVAIL that was great. I mean, and we always loved any time we could get to do something anywhere near them is great, you know.
P-Funk and the Sun Monkeys would be one of my, like, all-time greatest lineups ever.
Oh, no, and I would have ran away with the circus. I mean, that would have probably been game over. But I would be like, I'm just getting in one of these chunks, and you can wake up and I'm at the next gig, because I have a feeling some of the guys in the band would be like, all right, we got this guy now. We got to go. Right? I don't think they would have cared. Yeah, they seem like good enough guys.
And so who were, like, some of the bands that were essentially your peers that you did a lot of shows with, and that you felt like were kind of, you know, that challenged you, or you felt like you were somewhat competing against?
Different times, you know, like different times were different bands.
Yeah, I never really felt that we were competing against anybody, because I really didn't feel any pressure that we had to compete against anybody, because I don't think anyone was doing particularly what we were specifically. But peer-wise, at least for me, was the highlights for me was playing with Vehicle Birth and Dismemberment Plan. We did a ton of shows with them, and they were just always really memorable. It was always good vibes with those guys, and we would always, rack up a show with all three of us, and it was such different vibes throughout the bands, but we all loved each other so much. There was just so much energy throughout the night, and we all cared about each other's sets and what we were doing. And so that was like a really, really good time, at least for me personally.
Yeah, me too. And I think the cool thing during that time, no matter where we would play, if all three of us were on the bill, it would be packed from whoever was the opener to the ender. Like, and we always kind of flip-flopped who played where.
Yeah.
But it would always be packed. So even though we were completely different kinds of bands, we just really liked each other, and we liked hanging out together. And, sometimes you play shows with bands where you respect them and like their music, but you don't necessarily get along. And in those bands, it was fine. Like, we'd leave the show and go back to somebody's house and hang out for the rest of the night, generally.
Maybe even have a jam session back at their house after.
Yeah.
Is there any jealousy about, the success that any of those bands experienced? You know, the success that AVAIL had or Dismemberment Plan had later on?
No way, man. I just wish they would have done more. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm happy now. I see Tim Berry, out there doing his acoustic stuff and going around. I don't think we ever had anything like that with any band. Like, yeah. I just wanted the most success for anybody that they wanted. And the thing is, a lot of the bands around Northern Virginia at the time actually didn't really even want success that much. They just wanted to play and be able to get paid, but it wasn't like, I want to be the biggest star on the planet, or like go super far and do all this stuff. It was just about live more in the moment, like just making songs and making music. Like, I don't remember ever sitting around with the birth or Dismemberment Plan and talking about what we were going to be when we grew up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was all love, man. It was all love. There was never a salty moment dealing with other bands and whatever success each individual band had. It was all just love and admiration for, awesome, you're doing this? That's fucking totally cool, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, and even recently, like, I was trying to get my vehicle birth collection back to where it used to be, and I bought one of their 7-inches online, and it came with their drummer's phone number written on it where he had given it to somebody with his number on it and stuff, and I thought that was hilarious. And Chris, I think you just interviewed Chris, right?
I did, yeah.
From the Upwest. Yeah, like, Aaron gave me some old Some Monkey cassette, and I posted a picture of it online, and he hit me up, and I mailed it to him. But, I mean, I don't think anybody ever thought like that at all. It was just more camaraderie and let's try to do something. I mean, I think the bands tried to support each other as much as we could because the scene sometimes wasn't supportive as it could have been. So the bands tried to make up for it, and that's, you know, the house parties and all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's cool that Chris started, like, Dharma Coffee House. You know, this idea of, like, having a place to hang out, drink good coffee, and also be able to, like, book whatever shows you want to book. I mean, it sounds amazing. My buddy Ed is actually doing the same thing now in Baltimore with this place called Three Bean Coffee. And that's essentially the same thing behind it, although the coffee business, I think, is a little more competitive these days.
Yeah, but, I think in the beginning of Dharma, though, the idea wasn't even really to have shows because Chris and another guy owned it together, and it was more just like a coffee house that slowly turned into, well, we want a place to play tonight, and we're all hanging out. So, you know, because in the beginning, it was smaller, and so we would play right at the end by this little window in the bathrooms, and it was smaller.
Yeah, it was about half the size it is now.
Yeah. So the original idea, I don't think, was to have shows. It was more like you go in there and listen to Coltrane and stuff and have good coffee and just hang out. But of course, because of the people who are owning it and stuff like that, we all gravitated towards it because every musician that was around at that one point in time was going to be, you could walk in there and hang out pretty much at any given time and get something done or, you know, maybe get invited to play a show or invite a band to play a show or, you know. But that was an awesome time. And I think that really probably was the funnest time as far as how cool the shows were and how close we were with some of the bands and stuff. But it was always, I remember seeing Rashaad's Vanologies for the first time. I don't know how they ended up opening for us, but that was at Bender's, so I don't know if they reached out to Bender's and got the gig or if somebody got them the gig. I have no clue. But we showed up and they were sound checking as we walked in, and we immediately embraced them like 1,000%. Like we were just like, yes. Like Rashaad, Matt Park. I forget the drummer's name right now. Yeah. But we were instantly
in love with them.
We were like, you're playing with us from now on. I don't know what you guys are doing for the next couple of months, but now you play with us. Yeah. Because we just loved them. I mean, they were so talented, and I mean, honestly, we were only a couple years older at that point, but looking at them, you saw what we were doing in them. Like, they were younger, you know, and immediately took to them and just wanted them to play with us. And then, obviously, Rashaad eventually was in the band, you know.
Well, there must have been very few bands that could match you funk for funk.
Well, nobody was really doing it. Like, I mean, I don't remember really playing many shows with other funky bands. I mean, we played with that band Elephant Boy one time, and they kind of did some funky stuff, but most of the time we played with rock bands and punk bands and just weird Northern Virginia bands that I don't even know what you would call it. Like, I mean, I think everybody had so many different influences. There was just lots of weird, I wouldn't even call some of it alternative. Like, it was, I mean, it's alternative to mainstream, but it's not like Nirvana or something, you know what I mean? Like, or some Pearl Jam or something like that. Most of the bands we played with, I don't think we ever really played with that many funky bands.
I mean, there was a few with a few tinges here or there, but yeah, nothing major. But I mean, I guess that's one thing looking back now that I thought that I enjoyed because we were our own caliber per se. So it was nice being, what we were, not lumped with a whole bunch of other of the same style. Not that would be bad, but just saying in general, it was just kind of nice just being us,
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, at your live shows, whereas, a lot of other bands would have been about the pit, like, you guys were making people dance.
Yeah, I didn't care much about the pits. I mean, I did the pits when I'd go to shows and stuff, but no, I think we more wanted people to dance and, like, I don't know, we were very idealistic, too. Like, we wanted this whole crowd and friends and all this stuff to be this big, like, living organism, like, I don't know how else to describe it, but, like,
family.
Yeah, this family stuff. Like, we were like, if you're in, you're in, like, and we'll deal with anything you have, and you'll deal with anything we have, and, we'll go forward like this. And, I mean, I think that's why we were able to play with so many different bands and do a lot of different things, is we were very much loose, like, we just wanted to play music in any way we could, anywhere we could, with good people around us. And, as you play music, sometimes in the music industry, that's not the easiest thing to pull off,
Well, it didn't hurt that the girls liked you, too.
It didn't.
That didn't hurt, no. But, I mean, it was interesting. I do think, like, when I would go to see other bands play, it was more heavily leaning toward guys. And at our shows, generally, it was a really good mix. But that was cool, too. You know what I mean? Like, that kept the vibe where we wanted it. Like, people would dance and would hang out. And I don't know, it was a kinder, gentler show. But, yeah, definitely, like, we had a good audience mix of all kinds of people, too. Like, our shows, it was weird. Like, I was lucky. Being in this band and being in high school, I was pretty much liked by every group, clique thing, whatever it could be. That I didn't really have much problems, most people kind of liked what we did, that were around us. So, I don't really even remember too many haters, but I probably wouldn't have paid attention if there was one.
Yeah, well, I was class of 95 at Southlake, so I was a freshman when you were a senior. And, you and Ari, like, you guys were just looked at as gods to, like, the freshmen. Like, we just thought that, like, the Sun Monkeys were the coolest thing on the planet. And that it's amazing that you went to our school, and that you were there. It was like, how is this even happening?
Yeah, that's super cool to hear. It's awesome. It totally gives me warm fuzzies and stuff. But now looking back, when I was a freshman in high school and when I was looking at the other bands that were older than us in high school, it was the same thing for me. So for, like, Crunchy Water and, Split Decision, specifically for South Lakes, stuff like that, it was always like, oh, who are these guys? They're awesome. I can't, whatever. It's all crazy. But, so I guess every class has their own, looking up to who was there before. I guess it's an ongoing thing for, whatever. But that's cool. But it makes me feel good that, people liked us like that.
Yeah, we were lucky too, because not only did we have all those cool bands that were, like, directly around us, but like, my parents let me go do whatever I wanted from a young age as far as music was concerned, because they knew how much it meant to me, and as long as I got good grades and did all this stuff, like, it was fun. So, like, I would be going to see Scream and Shudder to Think and Fugazi and all these bands in D.C., and then being surrounded by all these really cool bands around where we live too, because there was a whole Reston and Fairfax kind of scene, and then out in Princeton County there was a bunch of different kind of bands too. And I could pretty much Thursday, through Sunday go watch a band play somewhere, or any day of the week catch them practicing or whatever, and you're all kind of like giving each other influences and little things, where somebody knows something that you don't, and then we were just sharing lots of information and sharing lots of music. I mean, I can't tell you how many CDs we probably passed through a million hands of different bands and just cool stuff. Like, check this out. But we were lucky. There was a lot of bands at that time. I mean, a lot.
Yeah, and thinking back to your other podcasts that you've done, with all those kids in the area making that music, it has been highlighted already, but it deserves to be said again. It was just such a good experience to have all those fellow creative people that were just making this sort of local movement, if you will, of this vibe and places to go, and obviously, Jam for Man was a cultivation of that, especially for the message of it and doing good for donating food for homeless and things like that. It was just one of the heights of I guess the type of shows in that area for kids that age. Is just a great experience all the way around.
Well, I want you guys to know, I mean, I started a funk band and basically only did that because of the Sun Monkeys.
Awesome.
I mean, Parliament Funkadelic also. Of course.
Yeah, maybe them a little bit more, right?
But I don't think I would have thought that I could do it, or that it could happen in Reston if the Sun Monkeys hadn't been there to pave the way.
Awesome.
So, my band Blotter Otter existed only because of you guys.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, and even with when we were getting together, I already had a band that had recorded 2 demos with the Sky, and so then when we started playing together, we started to actually write our own songs. I remember pushing to no, we need to go to the studio, and we'll have to pay. I was like, we'll have to pay the guy, but he'll give us a good deal. I've worked with him a bunch, and pushing us to actually record something, to get something, real down. And once we had the songs, we'd probably been playing those songs for, a little while at that point. And then once we did that, then it helped us to get gigs and helped with, obviously making us some money.
I remember being at the place he's talking about. I forget the guy's name, but the recording studio was called Sound Pig.
It's Paul Coach, something like that. But it's a place called Sound Pig.
And in between tracks, while he was doing something, while someone was cutting something, we'd be out in the parking lot blasting Cypress Hill's album. You know what I mean? Pulling off a 40 or something, and just chilling out, and then walk back in, do more tracks. Awesome memories there. And I know you mentioned Inner Ear Studios a lot, and that was a huge name for us. Always hearing about it, but at least for me personally, and I don't think the band, I never had a chance to record them there. But so many of the people that obviously that we played with and you've interviewed have been there, and I know that was an institution of I don't know, notoriety. But unfortunately we didn't get to record there, but we did have some good experiences. Our second record we did at a church. I don't know why we had access to that church.
Because of the guy from Pool, Bear from Pool. He had access to that church, and he recorded the album. But I think that's possibly why we never ended up in an area or a studio like that. Is we kind of needed a looser vibe to play in. When you go to some of the studios, it's you're paying for time, and there's a ton of bands coming in to record there, and so it has to be really tight and done. Not that our band wasn't tight, but we would also like to change stuff around or mess around with stuff. So we kind of gravitated towards things where there would be a more flexible environment. Not to say I can't speak to Inner Ear, we never recorded there.
Right.
But in the rest of my life, recording at any studio, a lot of times you go in, your stuff's primed and ready to go, and you don't have the freedom to continue to work. And sometimes we wanted to continue to work a little bit more. But like I said, I can't speak to Inner Ear. We never did it. So tell
me about recording Brotherhood, because It's one of my favorite albums of all time.
Brotherhood was fun. Like, we had basically the studio carte blanche. I mean, basically, whenever we wanted to come in that he didn't have studio time booked, we could come in and just record and do whatever we wanted. I mean, he put no restrictions on us at all and didn't really give us a lot of opinion about any of the songs. He was just like, hey, do what you want, you know? I mean, the main thing for us at the time was being able to pay for the tape. Like, he didn't even really charge us that much, and we were there a lot. Yeah. And, like, we were there a ton, and it was a full-on studio. Like, it wasn't, like, at somebody's house or something. Like, it was a full-on working studio.
Listening to the album now, it's, like, paper thin sound-wise.
But part of that was us, too. I mean, our sound at the time wasn't as complex as it got for Love American Style, where at that point, we had way more depth across the board. I mean, we were still more into some of the punk rock kind of stuff. Like, there was a lot of treble going on in that album, in Brotherhood.
Did you have all the songs written when you went into the studio?
I think so.
Yeah, pretty much.
There was some changes, but most of it was pretty much written.
Like, I think, that song "To Be a Monkey," I think we messed with a little bit there and added some of that, like, you know, that little break in the middle of the song we added in, spur of the moment.
Yeah, and I feel like Inner Salvation wasn't fully.
Is that you? Is it you, Zach, that does the voice there?
No,
it's Pete.
Pete, the drummer.
Yo, Fat Apple Man, why you boys always talk about so much sex? That's because it is some monkeys, Rudy. And besides, you ain't Rick James, so get out of my face, asbestos.
We had a girl, Janine, sing on one song, and your sister come in and sing, right?
Yeah, I can't remember which of them.
Yeah. Sex Truth. Yeah. And I remember that was cool too, like, when we were recording that album too, like, other musicians from the area would stop in sometimes to check it out. And the guy was really cool with that because it's helping to sell his studio time, you know, them seeing us do stuff. But it was a very loose atmosphere. Like, there was no pressure on us to be fast or not change something or not try a different sound or whatever. We kind of could do whatever we wanted. So it was fun.
I mean, To Be a Monkey has that, like, go-go breakdown at the end, which is amazing. I mean, you guys are basically doing, like, straight go-go there.
Yeah.
Brady. And on the bass, right in your face, Mr. Ari, Bear, Ricochet, Spank Your Black. And the man that needs no introduction, Pete, the dope beat, Ben Allen. And I'm just the baddest little mom. Call me the genie of sound.
Like, the thing is, like, the club too, the Vendors Club at the time, they also would do go-go nights. So a bunch of us were going to see go-go all the time, and like all the go-go bands from DC were coming out to Manassass to play at this club because the club was nice. Like, it was actually really big. The only thing that was weird with it was it didn't have alcohol. But it was a huge club with a good sound system and a really awesome backstage area where you could hang out. Like, it was like upstairs, completely separate, and it was huge. Like, you can't, like, we have parties in that thing. I mean, it was like insane. And the guy basically, I'm sure he did it with other bands too. He pretty much let us kind of just do whatever we wanted, and you know, it was, there was lots of go-go shows, and me and Pete, you know, we were all heavily into all that stuff. I mean, pretty much anything that sounded good, like or fun, we were going to gravitate towards it. And sometimes fun sounded like punk, you know, and sometimes it sounded like go-go, hip hop, rock, whatever. I mean, we liked it all. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say Inner Salvation is like, you know, sort of, it's just like a groove, and it's slow and contemplative, and it just perfectly matches the lyrics. A single prayer.
That one was such a one-off. Now that one is one that came studio time. Like, I don't know if it was Tom that wanted a ballad. Somebody in the band wanted a ballad for some reason because we were at the studio, and we wrote that like really quick and just put it on there. And that honestly came out of the blue. Like, and I don't know that we really didn't really do that song very much. So.
I don't think we did it live very often.
No, I think we did it like maybe. You could probably count it on one hand any time that had popped out. And it was probably some night where we were sad. But yeah, that one was definitely one that was a studio, like while we were in the studio, let's put a slow song on it to cap it off kind of deal. Yeah, that Inner Salvation. I love that one.
Yeah, both
versions.
Both versions on the albums are amazing.
Yeah, I think the reggae stuff came more from Aaron and Pete initially. And Tom liked it a lot too. And not to say that I wasn't into reggae, but I think you guys worked on that stuff. Like
the groove.
The groove was there when you presented it to me. You guys already had the grooves and stuff. I don't think I was like a big part of writing, but being there while the music was written so much for those.
Who came up with Your House?
That one's a tough one.
I want to say that was an even meeting in the middle.
Yeah, and that song even changed over time. That song became a whole different animal later. But
because I can't think of one specific piece that drove everybody in. I think that we just kind of came together, like we honestly just walked from four corners of the room and met in the middle.
Yeah. And a lot of our songs are like that.
Yeah.
And I think when Tom was in the band more, you and him would come either together with pieces that would become the songs, or you each would come in with a separate part. And then in the next, when we had Rashaad, and Pete, and then when Pete was not in the band anymore and Stevie, those times were more like we were definitely writing all the songs together. Like it was just like we get in a room and just start jamming and writing them. Like it wasn't, in the early days, you guys would come in with ideas already, because like you said, you guys already had some stuff backlogged, and then you would come in with the stuff. But then once we got into some of the next phases, it was more like we just got in the room and start jamming and start figuring out, piecing stuff together, and see who takes it in what direction.
Yeah. Stevie, he was definitely a tight groove master on the drums, and he paired. Honestly, and besides that, I mean, Ari was really like just the perfect peppering to kind of go over any beat or groove or anything else. He would be kind of like the the final frosting on everything that would kind of like give it a sparkle on top, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but we were lucky to have we had Tom Young on drums, we had Peter Van Allen on drums, we had Stevie on drums, and every different one, there was a different feel to the band, and they were all good. Like to me, like it all worked.
Yeah.
We never really had a issue. It's just the style kind of changed. And the same with the guitar players. I mean, Tom was more of he loved punk rock and stuff, and he loved funk too, but he brought a more aggressive style to the band. Rashaad was more just like
Rashaad, man, you know what I mean?
There's no real description for what he was doing.
He's just rad.
Yeah, he was killing it. And then Josh, when he was in the band, just a very technically killer musician, great singer. Like, I mean, he's
talented all across the board.
He can play pretty much any instrument you hand to him. And just, so each different time, it was a whole different little thing, But we were lucky that it was always cool people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hate to say this, but we had a nasty habit of almost stealing people from other bands.
Yeah, no, we did. But what are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah, so while we're talking about stealing people from other bands, I want to clear up the Rashaad story about the show. So when basically we had a show in St. Louis, and I mean, he had to only be like 15, because I was probably only 16, 17, something like that. And he was telling us that he could do it, and we thought it was a stretch, and we went to pick him up, and he couldn't go, And so we had the show, and it was a paying gig. Ari had got the gig. And
he was going to school out there.
Yeah. And so we were like, man, this is good money. Like, we can use this money, to help our band out. So I picked up the phone and called Josh, because he was in a band called Mary Jane at the time. And I was like, hey, do you want to go to St. Louis to play a show? And there's no way he could go to St. Louis to play a show either. But he was like, yeah, come get me. So we went and picked him up right then on the spot, picked him up, got in the car. We had a caravan of a couple of cars. He got in the car with you and somebody else and learned all the songs.
Like a 17-hour drive out there, and he literally learned he had heard us before, obviously, but he learned all our repertoire on the drive out. And then we played our show.
And the show was 2 sets. Like, it was like 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
It was insane. And he completely nailed it. And so after that, we didn't know what was going to really happen with Rashaad, And at the same time, like, there was, in different points in our band, that everybody had little difficulties with their parents and stuff because we were all young, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes it wasn't going to be a great idea to go to New York for the weekend and play a bunch of shows. So different things happened, but Josh was able to step in, and it worked out great. But, I mean, with all the band members that we've ever had in the band, everybody brought something cool to the table. Like, I enjoyed each variation of the band that we had, everybody brought something different, and it was good. Me and Aaron hung on.
Yeah.
So there was no animosity whatsoever, because Rashaad seemed to think that, you guys were upset with him during that time, like he had, I guess, committed and then backed out of it.
No, I think we always knew in the back of our head it was a long shot, you know what I mean, that he would be able to do that, because even for me, and my parents let me do pretty much anything and knew our band was doing good and let me, like, we'd go to play in New York and do stuff or whatever, but St. Louis is a trek when, nobody's, everybody's teenagers, that's a pretty big commitment for some parents to let go like that. And, so no, like, I don't think we were upset with him. We were just kind of shocked because just how it happened, we thought he was going and then he wasn't, but we always still loved Rashaad. I mean, he kind of stayed with me for a little while, and like I still love him to death. Like, I mean, everybody that's been in the band, I can't think of one person that I have any ill will towards at all. Like, even some peripheral people that just kind of came and jammed with us for a second, like most of them, it's all good, But no, we love Rashaad.
We clearly love him.
Like, one of my favorite moments of Sun Monkeys all time is we played at Bender's one night. And Rashaad was in the band and Pete was still in the band at that time. And we just decided to go off that night. Like, the show, like, when you listen to it on CD or tape, is not our best show. But we played for like 4 hours. It was like, we were playing songs that weren't even songs. It was basically like we invited the whole packed place to come watch us write songs. And like, there's one point I just looked over at Rashaad and he just turned his amp up every single knob all the way. He just murdered it. Like, I was like, oh no, in my head I'm like, oh, this is gonna be terrible. And then he just slayed, like absolutely slayed. I'm like, all right, I guess you do what you want.
He just took his hand and rolled it across all the dials on his amp head.
And he only had 5 strings that night. But he crushed it. I was like, okay, you do you, man. Like, I questioned it. That's what it sounds like. Go for it, man. But you've played with Rashaad's son. He's great. Josh was great. Tom was great. Just different periods in the band. Pete and Aaron were so in the pocket. Like, I mean, my dad still says to this day, he's like, man, Sun Monkeys was great. And he was like, but Pete and Aaron. And I'm like, thanks, Dad.
Your dad's got a point.
No, he loves it. Like, and Pete lived with me for a little while too. So like, my dad got a heavy dose of Pete drumming all day long. But my dad loved it because he used to play guitar. So he thought we were great. Like, he loved it.
Well, I don't, Aaron, I don't know where you sort of developed your slap bass style from, or where, what that came out of, but there was nobody that played like you.
Oh, that's sorry. Yeah, no, that's totally cool. I mean, it's cool to hear it from somebody else. I never thought about it that way, because I always was trying to do better. And I didn't necessarily think that I was, something, super cool or anything. I was just like, I'm just trying to get the groove on. I kind of picked up little pieces from different areas, obviously, popular stuff. But also, like, especially with the, like Jack was saying with the jazz stuff, there's other bass players that aren't mainstream that us as kids weren't necessarily, most kids weren't listening to, but I got lots of stuff from different players. Obviously, like Marcus Miller, he's a huge session player, but he also did a whole bunch of Miles Davis albums. He's like one of my favorites. And then
you introduced me to Jocko.
Yeah, but yeah, Jocko's Jocko. That's that.
I mean, when you're younger and you hear Jocko, you're like, holy cow.
But to tell you the truth, what was funny is, a little bit off topic, but still on topic, is so I had this part-time job doing helping this contractor, so like building like decks for houses and stuff during high school. He was like, all right, if you could only have one thing, you were stranded on a desert island, what would you have? And what was my answer? I said, my James Brown box set. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, the James Brown CD box set, man. I was like, that's what I would have. And he was like, no, your tools, you idiot. And I was like, no, man. James Brown, straight up, the groove from Bootsy Collins playing that.
And how many musicians, period, rolled through his band over the years? I mean, like that's the stuff we would, after shows, go hang out and talk about. Like how many killer musicians and what songs they played on. You know what I mean? Like, just incredible. James Brown, you can't mess with it. Like,
yeah, so a lot of the groove, man, I got from that. That's where I really saddled in. And of course, you know, some of the other stuff is like mainstream, like, you know, the Chili Peppers or you know, P-Funk and stuff like that. But, you know, that's you know, and also as I grew older, you know, the James Brown stuff also led me to other Motown stuff like James Jamerson, who's just, you know, on the money when he's playing bass. So,
and funky stand-up bass.
Yeah.
Stuff like that too, because not a lot of bands were really doing that. You know, like doing funky stuff with a stand-up bass. You know, but yeah, like Aaron, the first day that I jammed with you guys, when I jammed with them, I remember leaving and just being in shock. You know, like I was just like, oh my god, hey, we sounded really cool. Like that sounded good, but their musicianship was so good, and the band I was in at the time was really good too. But just the way it seemed like it could work, you know, like I just was like, man, I can see this being something different. And at the time, I was really looking to do something different, like because the band I was in, we sounded like a lot of bands, and I didn't. At that point, I was looking to not sound like every band in the area, you know, like I wanted to do something a little different. And really the blending style thing, I think, appealed to all of us. I think we all wanted to do whatever we wanted without rules in pretty much every aspect of our life at that time. It was just like, yeah, no rules, let's go. But it's funny, like we really took it right from the beginning. Like I don't think it was that long between playing a couple covers in Tom's basement to writing the songs and getting it going. Like it took off pretty fast.
Well, was there any thought to, you know, taking it beyond DC and beyond Reston? I mean, you guys were going up to New York and you were going to St. Louis, but I mean more in getting some kind of representation, getting radio play. You know, you mentioned the Chili Peppers before. I mean, I don't understand why the Sun Monkeys weren't more popular or more well known than the Chili Peppers.
I don't know. The night I hung out with them, they should have signed me. Yeah. But no, like I really honestly, all I can say is I don't really think a lot of the bands we were hanging out with that much were truly thinking about it on the way. Like obviously we wanted to make it and we wanted to do something with music, but I only really remember one time, you know, this manager girl, we went to meet with her, woman, because she booked the Bayou and was managing Mary Jane and wanted to meet with us and stuff. But I mean, me and Pete walked out of talking to her. Like we were all standing there talking to her, and me and Pete just walked out into the driveway and sat there. Like we just weren't feeling it. And it's not necessarily not feeling management, but we didn't really like what her thing was. But I think for the most part, we were just trying to make the music and let everything kind of fall into place. But no, we definitely wanted to travel and play shows at that time. And then especially once, when Stevie was in the band and Josh was in the band, we definitely wanted to play as many shows as we could. At that point, that was like trying to really push, like, are we going to do this or move or start new bands or whatever. But I think in most of it, we're just flying by the seat of our pants and doing any show we could get, writing any song we could. But I don't think we were the kind of people that really gravitated towards management kind of things. And I don't think a lot of the bands around here were, to be honest. And really, D.C., Northern Virginia hasn't always had the best support for the bands that were around. So there wasn't like people like banging down our door every day to be our manager and stuff, you know.
And that all boils back down to what you've talked about again before, is all of the camaraderie with the other groups and getting together and making our own scene, you know, making it happen, making shows happen amongst, you know, the kids in town. And that is so much of a special part of the whole scene at that time, is that, you know, we all made it happen for ourselves as opposed to someone coming and, you know, dragging us somewhere to make it happen. And that was so special about the time.
But can I drop a short but sweet commercial in here too? I do have to say a shout out to that guy from Classic Act. He actually still owns a place in Gainesville now.
Yeah.
But he used to sell us equipment for less than it was worth, and we'd go in there on a Friday night and be like, we have a gig, we need to borrow a PA and like a bunch of microphones, all that stuff, and he always set us up. Like, he always hooked us up with it. We always brought it back. Everything was cool, and we bought a lot of our gear from him, you know, for doing that. And like, he didn't need to do that. Like, he just did it out of wanting to support the local music scene, period, you know? Like, I don't know where you would find that today. And I know he's still open. He's in Gainesville, Virginia now, but we didn't know him. Like, he was not, like, a friend of ours, really. He just helped us. Like, I remember borrowing the PA from him, and then we bought it, the plush one. Like, we borrowed it for a party, brought it back, and then told him we were taking it again. But that's, I think that sums up kind of the scene, you know, like around that time. Like, we all helped each other. I mean, people borrowed our instruments at shows. We borrowed people's instruments sometimes at shows if something broke or whatever. And I don't ever feel like there was any jealousy or animosity between any bands around that I knew. I never felt that way, ever. But it was a fun time.
So you guys told me a little bit about recording Brotherhood. I'd like to touch on, like, just hearing a little bit more about recording Love American Style too. What was the difference in terms of the lineup for Brotherhood and Love American Style? Who was in the band when you recorded the second album?
So for the second album, we, of course, me and Zach, and then we had Stevie on drums, Ari on percussion.
And say last names if you don't mind. We don't need to protect the innocent or anything.
Okay, so Stevie Treichel is his last name. And then Josh
Scalero.
Yeah, and Ari Kirschenbaum, Lara Platt, Zack Larkin.
I can't tell you Crick's last name.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's another thing we haven't mentioned. So we had a short but pleasant vibe with a keyboard player at a certain portion of our band. And his name was Crick. We can't remember his last name. And he was down from Charlottesville. He had some run-ins with, like, Dave Matthews Band back in the day and stuff like that when they were small and stuff. And so we just thought he was great. He just kind of came out of nowhere and
ended up on the album and played with us for about a year. And it just added this whole other element that we hadn't had before, and we loved every bit of it. Yeah. But he was there just for like a flash.
Yeah, flash, but it was a hot flash while he was there.
I don't want to ask for anything else. If you ask real nice, I'll use the belt. This is all a game that I play so well, yeah. In and out of the local motel. I don't wanna hurt you. I don't wanna hurt you.
And let me see, some backup vocals were Matt Goodspeed,
yeah,
and also my sister Lara. Did she do anything on the album? Or
I don't know, I don't know if she did stuff on the album, but during some of the songs on Love American Style were even written when Pete was still in the band, because 40 Ounce Jam was on that.
Oh yeah.
So a couple of the songs were old holdovers from before, and then a lot of them are from the Josh Stevie period.
Yeah, totally. So a lot of stuff we recorded on Love American Style was still written with other members. It just hadn't been put down to tape.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much the lineup that we had.
But most of it's original to that lineup, because Caramel, most of the songs went out, 40 Ounce Jam, I mean, what else on there was from the old period? I think most of it was from that period. I think 40 Ounce Jam might have really been the only holdover. But some of the riffs might have been kind of started, but they weren't fully realized. But the vibe for that record was completely different. It's way more laid back. The band was way more laid back at that point. Like, during Brotherhood, we were amped up and a lot younger and just like crazier. Like, we were just crazier. And then with Love American Style, we were really settling into this like groove kind of thing. And we wrote more of the songs as kind of jam pieces where we were all jamming them and doing them versus people coming with pieces that we Lego brick into a song. You know what I mean? That album was more fluid, like the way this stuff was come up with.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like it has a more mature and expanded sound to it. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a while.
Especially with the addition of the keys, you know, to it. But yeah, the vibe, even the lyrics to the songs, like, you know, lyrics on something like Family. You know, you may have felt that way, or it may have been the same vibe from, you know, Brotherhood. I mean, Brotherhood is named Brotherhood, but you know,
yeah. So Family was a holdover too. But all I gotta say is, as far as vibe goes and the lyrics goes, I mean the lyrics to that song pretty much, you know, encompasses on a lot of, you know, what Zack was saying earlier about. You know, the people that we invited out who wanted to be, you know, a part of the communal group of, you know, just friends or whatever. And, but, you know, Zack's able to pull the, you know, put words to that feeling of what was going on at that time and whatnot. And just to go back, I'm sorry, but because it wasn't said before, basically, with all the other bands, at least that I was with, or when I was playing with Tom prior, and like you said before, Tom ended up moving from Reston to Woodbridge, Manassass.
Yeah.
And they were at what high school?
We're at Osbourn Park.
Osbourn Park. Just like he said when he came in, it was a no-brainer when Zach walked in and played with us because, a person who's the front of the stage and commanding the microphone and basically communicating with the audience, this too, Andy, it's far and in between and when you can have somebody that has the persona, presence, and talent and also the ability to reach out with the charisma and action that you can put into place that is just like, holy shit, what am I looking at here? This is awesome. You know what I mean? It's like, I played with so many people that might be a talented singer or something like that, but they just stand there and they don't say much and they don't do anything. And I'm not saying that's not necessarily bad, but it's just like when you run across that type of caliber person on the craft that they're doing, especially a frontman, it's like game over at that point. It's like, no, we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
There's no second question. Zach, on point, money, 100%. You know what I mean?
I just wanted to work the crowd. Like, I wanted the crowd to be a part of it, that was my big thing for our shows was just like, you want the crowd to be a part of it and engaged because when you go to shows, like I have another band and stuff, and when you go and you're not really like that or you don't have the music that can bring that, it feels cold. And so the music we were doing invited crowd interaction and invited fun and invited that kind of thing. So I was like, let's milk this. You know what I mean? And like me, I think a lot of the guys that were in the band, Tom would grab the mic and start rapping stuff off, like saying all kinds of stuff. Pete back there yelling and screaming, saying all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, we just wanted everybody to have a good time, period. That was it. Like, if you came to see us, it was supposed to be about having a good time. And really, we did treat there was a lot of people around our band all the time. We would have, there was people at practices, there was tons of people at the shows. We were talking about family, gotta just say Tom Hewitt.
Oh, totally.
We just had a lot of friends around, and that the guy Tom Hewitt I mentioned, we always joked that he was like the additional member of our band who was not in the band because he was in the band. He didn't play with us, but he was in it.
Yeah.
So I gotta throw him out there for sure. And me and him had a short-lived band for one night called House Band Trio. That was kind of funny. I put a cymbal stand through my face, so that was good time.
So let me ask, did Ari design, was he the one responsible for the logo? Is he the one that did the shirts? Was he the visual artist behind the band?
Pretty much.
Yeah, I think one of our first shirts was done by a guy named Adam, and I forget his last name, but he did one of our original shirts, and then pretty much from there, Ari took it over.
The Sun Monkey logo, basically. I still have the old bass drum head in my house with the Sun Monkey logo. It's awesome. But, Ari drew pretty much most of our flyers with all the different monkeys on there.
Anything that looked drawn out, like the cartoon stuff, was all him.
And also, we have a lot of that, so I'm going to share that with you later, so we can post that up. But yeah, man, he's a minimum of a triple threat in himself because not only being a great musician, he's a incredible writer and artist, and so he fully came through with all or most of the art for all of the flyers and things like that. For a few of the flyers, we were using old 70s Playboy fold-outs.
That was good.
Centerfolds from magazines, and we would cover up the risque parts with letters of our names in the info.
That was during the vehicle birth plan days because we would put those up at Dharma. And basically, we were just making collages, but we were trying to get our hands on as many old, super old Playboys we could find, and just it was the most tasteful, beautiful pictures. They weren't even it wasn't even the way you would think of stuff like that now. They were just brilliant, awesome pictures, and we would put all our information over the stuff, so you couldn't really see anything. But they looked great. but that was a lot of time when Ari was at school, like that, and then a couple times we were lucky enough that Ari would be back in town and just do some shows with us. Like whenever he was around, he would do shows, and that was great for us and great for people to see because he was great.
And one time when he was out at school, we asked the guys from Bioritmo. Do you remember them?
No.
Okay.
Bioritmo.
So they're based out of Richmond, and they're still around, and they're actually like cooking it, man. They're doing their thing. But we knew a few cats from that band, and we played at Bender's one time. We were like, hey man, our percussionist is not with us right now. We need some percussion on this. And
did they have horns?
I'm sorry?
Did they have horns? Because you should have grabbed their horn players too.
I think they probably have had horns at times.
I would have loved to see the
I
play
think
with
I
horns.
remember times with them without, and we have horns occasionally, like if people would want to do it.
Yeah, we had a trumpet player at one point, just for a few shows, but those guys were like, straight Latin beat, like whatever. So they added a whole nother flair into the show.
That'd be sick.
We rolled with it, man. We loved it. But that was a cool highlight from one of the shows. Having other people step in like that and just be like, yo, man, I'm gonna share the stage with you tonight and just make it extra juicy, whatever style tonight,
Yeah, I mean, if those guys are around and willing to do it, then why not?
Oh, totally. I mean, and it goes back to the same thing. It's like, if you're, if you've got that juice, man, and no matter what area it's from, just the same thing with like compiling music and making music, doesn't matter what style it is, well, let's try and put this together. Let's try and mush this together in awesome,
Yeah, especially if we knew, like, it wasn't like anybody could just walk up and play with us or any of the other bands around at the time, but like, if we'd seen each other and we knew what each other could do, we were more than willing to let people sit in and do stuff, or we would sit in with other people and like, just if we knew it could work, or if it had, and honestly, it didn't even have to work. It was just like if we thought it might work, but we weren't going to practice it. It was just like, okay, here we go. Let's go. And Bioritmo, they're incredibly talented. I mean,
totally.
Still to this day, look them up. I mean, they're a great band.
I will. Who came up with the name Sun Monkeys? Who's credited with it?
All right, so that was me and Tom over a long phone call in high school. We literally sat there for like, must have been like an hour, back in the day before cell phones, and you're in high school and you're just, I get to talk on the phone. All right, check it out. So we're talking about this. And we went probably through every single name we could think of. And we were just like, all right, well, what things do we like, or what's it? And finally it just came down to it, and it was like, all right, how about Sun Monkeys? And we were like, all right, yeah, that's it. Let's roll with that.
And it was so funny because when I first, heard the name, when you guys told me what the name was, I wasn't even involved in any of that. And I was immediately like, yep, that works. Let's go. Let's do it. There wasn't any moment where anybody in the beginning was like, I don't think so. Like, it was like, no, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, totally. And it just came down to a point where it was just like, it was just digestible. I mean, not for everybody, but for us, it just felt easy where it's not over thought out. It's just like, all right, man, fuck it. We're the Sun Monkeys, man.
Yeah.
Let's roll.
Yeah. I've always had for all things monkeys. Man, I have monkeys tattooed on my arm. Like monkey has always kind of been my spirit animal. So.
Totally, man.
Well, we wouldn't be drinking bourbon right now out of glasses with the monkey wearing headphones on it. But we are.
So, I hate to have to talk about the end, but how did the end come about for the band? And then was there a night that you knew was going to be the last show, or did it just peter out? What became of the Sun Monkeys essentially?
Oh, we're still around. We're still on hiatus.
Yeah, we knew basically, I think towards the end, the Dismemberment Plan was doing their kind of thing, and Vehicle Birth was about to move to Boston. And the band, we were still good and still doing really good shows. And at that point, I would say most of the shows we were playing that weren't with Vehicle Birth and Dismemberment Plan, we were generally playing 3 to 4 hour sets pretty much every time we played. And, but around, the scene wasn't that supportive, like, and I don't mean the fans, I mean the clubs and the stuff. And so there started to be some sickness, being sick of that and just wanting to do something else. And so I think initially you and I started talking about potentially just moving somewhere. Me and Aaron were talking about, like, hey, we've kind of done as much as we're doing here. Like, should we do something else? And we started talking about a bunch of stuff. Like, I know, like, I originally wanted to move to Colorado. And buddy, I wanted to move to Colorado. Aaron liked Atlanta. We talked about London. Like, I mean, everything was kind of on the table. But the main thing was, a lot of our close friends, were off in college or either back from college and getting jobs and stuff like that. And we felt like we had done as much as we could do here. And it was just like, do we want to keep doing this same stuff or maybe try to go do something different? And because we always liked doing something different, I think that's kind of how it laid out. I mean, but there wasn't, at the end, there wasn't a ton of animosity. Although our last show, there's a little negativity. But for the most part, I think we just wanted to do something, try something else. I mean, it was time to do something.
There wasn't necessarily like an implosion or anything.
No. It just kind of run its course,
And what did you guys each move on to?
Well, we both settled on Georgia. I moved to Athens. Aaron moved to Atlanta. And I think originally we thought, we'll still try to do some stuff down there. But when you're young and broke, I mean, that's like an hour and a half away. And when I moved down to Athens, I moved down with a guy named Derek Olmstead, who was in the band Mary Jane. And so we moved down there, and we were going to do some stuff together, too. And we kind of did some little stuff here and there, but we never really got anything off the ground. And then Aaron started playing with a band, and I started a band. But it wasn't a band. I just wrote all the songs, and then I had some people try to play with me a little bit. Like Derek played. Derek became the drummer for Montreal for a while. So the first show was basically the people that were in Montreal and me. But I was in Athens at a time when like Nutrimilk Hotel was there, Olivia Tremor Control of Montreal was starting. Like, it was just a great time. Like, there was a ton of cool bands. So I just was working around town trying to find something to latch onto. Aaron got in, you were in PH Balance at that point. But it was kind of a far drive, so we just kind of ended up like, all right, we're in the town or city we're in, then just started working,
What about everybody else? Did any of the other guys go on to form other bands that you know of?
For sure. Stevie.
What was sort of the family tree of the Sun Monkeys?
Yeah, when we left, Stevie got in 5-State Drive with the guy from Galaxy Hut.
Yeah, Larry, owner from Galaxy Hut, and also not Star Bar, Space Bar in Arlington. Anyway, local joints around Northern Virginia. He owns those now, but Stevie was in a band with Larry from that, and they did some work. And then Stevie ended up moving out to California.
Yeah, with Timmy. To meet up with, he hooked up with Timmy from Vehicle Birth, and they started a band up there
called The Movies. So that's another one to look into.
I remember them.
Yeah. They rocked out for quite some time.
Yeah, they were good.
Yeah, no, they're, dude, yeah, totally. Dude, Timmy is the shit.
But here's
flat out.
And 5-State Drive were great too.
Dude, of course, man. We're all fucking good.
But that's the thing. Like, I think that's kind of what's going on when we listen to your podcast. Is there actually was a lot of good bands around and people that went on to do other good stuff. But I just don't think being famous or doing it conventionally was necessarily the road everybody was taking. Like, I think most of us were just trying to do it ourselves. And if we could do it ourselves and find a way to make it happen, that would be the better way. I mean, but honestly, if somebody would have come up with something right for us, we would have probably taken it. I mean, just to be honest.
Sure, yeah.
Like if something would have happened, we would have taken it, but we weren't courting it, I guess, is the way to look at it. Actively. You know, like we weren't actively courting. We weren't sending. We were more concerned with getting our CDs and demos and stuff into the hands of people that were near us that could come to the shows than we were with sending them out to record companies and stuff. I don't remember a time we ever did that.
No.
Or management companies.
No,
I picked mine up at that, if you remember that, like, little tiny record store that was in Lake Anne for a little while.
CD Seller?
It wasn't called CD Seller. It was just like, it was actually in Lake Anne Shopping Center on, like, kind of right near the art museum, or the, you know, whatever the little gallery was over
I
there.
got you. Yep.
It was kind of in between, like, Fresh Value and that art gallery in Lake Anne.
I remember what you're talking about.
Shout out to CD Seller. That's still my spot.
Yeah, CD
No, so as actively as we got trying to hand out our tape, I went to a Beastie Boys show at a high school somewhere, I think.
That was Michael's 8th Avenue.
And Basehead was opening up, and long story short, me and Pete ended up doing stuff with, what's his name?
Mike. He also, not only did you guys do stuff with him, he also recorded a bunch of, me and Pete had a band later called Super Villains of Sound, and he recorded us.
Hell yeah, Super Villains of Sound, totally. Also Space Monks, another spinoff. Anyway, whole nother thing. But as far as like actively shopping our thing, I took one of our Brotherhood tapes at the Beastie Boys show and worked my fucking way up in between the huge pit up front through all these jocks, made it to the front row, almost dead, holding up my tape with one hand. And MCA came up, took that tape right out of my hand, put it on top of his amp, and kept rapping. What the heck? Did we get a call? No, we didn't get a call, Andy.
We probably didn't have a phone number. Like we weren't that savvy about it. There was no website. There was no telephone number. You know?
Yeah, he probably just didn't leave a message. You want to hear a weird coincidence? That like, I went to the Beastie Boys show that was at George Mason, and a guy handed me his demo CD, and I was like, "What is this?" And he's like, "It's Inbred Pop," and I loved it. I was like, "This is amazing," and it turned out that it was Citizen Cope, and it was his solo album. And, you know, because he was the DJ for Basehead. It's Clarence Greenwood.
Yeah. So I got some funny stories too then. So Cope was in Basehead, but I think Cope used to also mess around, I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think he used to mess around with 311 too, which is Mal's old band, which you should also check out. We went up to New York to play a showcase, and it was when I was in Super Villains of Sound, and but it wasn't my showcase. It was Pete was in another band called Avalanche Sound System with Mal, and we went up, and the manager for Two Skinny Jays had hooked it up, and he had us a whole bus and a driver, and it was all hooked up. It was great. So we get there. They're like, "Hey, we're gonna go to eat dinner with this guy," you know. And so we go over, and Cope, and like, so I walk in, I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, that's not some guy, man, that's you." All right. So it was cool. We got to hang out with him, and then we played the showcase. I mean, it was a great night. I mean, and we drove back that night, went to sleep in the van, and they drove us back. And I still to this day don't know how we hooked up with Two Skinny Jay's manager or any of that stuff worked out. It was just like, I got a call. So, you want to go to New York for a showcase? I'm like, oh, cool.
And one more trifecta for Beastie Boys is I got a call late one night in Atlanta from a buddy of mine saying, "Hey man, we know you play upright bass. We need you down here for a studio session." And I'm like, "What's up?" He's like, "We're recording DJ Hurricane's solo album." And I'm like, "What?"
So hurrah.
So I roll out there, and I got to play on DJ Hurricane's album one night. Freaky as hell. It's only 24 hours long. We're there up, all night, all day, playing tracks. But pretty weird to go from handing, a tape out to, a member to getting a weird phone call in the middle of the night, showing up in a studio in Atlanta and being able to at least record some tracks with the DJ, And there's a billion good people on it. But it's, well, I won't say that. It is what it is.
Yeah, but I mean, even when I moved back here and started working with Pete again, and we did Supervillains of Sound, when he told me he was like doing stuff with Mike Ivy and like he was like, Mike's gonna let us come to the studio, and basically we were just paying for DAT tapes and stuff like that. Like we didn't have to pay for the studio time; we were doing it in off hours. And, Mike was there and had an engineer there for us, and we weren't paying a dime. And I'm like, dude, I used to go see this band. Like, it was crazy, Like, it was insane to me that was happening. Because I just moved back from Athens, and I was, like, nervous when I moved back because I still wanted to play music. But I'm like, who's still around? Who wants to do anything? Like, what am I going to do? And so, of course, immediately, when I moved back, I called Pete, and he's like, yeah, let's do something, And then that just kind of took off for a little while, and we did that. But me and Pete at that point, like, we didn't really want to travel really too far. Like, we just wanted to record music and do one-off shows, and the emphasis more was on writing and recording, and so we just recorded a lot. That was
tons of material recorded.
Yeah, that was our main thing, and we would write a song, finish it, and move on. And that band, we never practiced. Like, we wrote the songs, recorded them, moved on. There was never any practice. We did our shows. And even after we quit playing together, I was just like, that was in 98, late 98 to like maybe 2001, 2002. And we played a show in, I think, 2015 or 2016, where I just called Pete and I was like, hey, my friends have a show and they need an opener. You want to play? And he's like, yep. Brought all the samplers, his MIDI stuff, his drum set, never practiced once, did all the songs. And he was like, I can't believe you remember all that stuff. And I was like, yeah. I mean, but we never practiced. We didn't practice a single time for that show at all. And that's not to like toot our horn or anything, but like we remember the songs. And we just, at that point in our band stuff, me and Pete were committed to, we don't want to drive these songs into the ground. Like, we don't want to play the same song 100 times. We just want to play it and move past it. And luckily, even when we were in Sun Monkeys, we practiced a lot. Everybody had their stuff down. Everybody that ever played with us had their stuff down. Like, we still practice all the time just because we love playing, but we could go a while without practicing and do a show for sure. I mean, and that was not always the case. I mean, I've done it in a million bands, and that is definitely not always the case. We really lucked out, which is like what I'm saying when I met the guys. It was immediately you could feel the energy and the commitment to like getting it down. Even when we were just doing a couple covers. Like I think that first day we finally did like 3 or 4 covers, and even Tom's dad came down that day when he got home and was like, "That sounds good." That's probably the biggest compliment he ever gave us. One just to say that sounds good. But they let us practice there, so it was awesome. Any parent that let us practice at their house deserves a shout out on this too, because we were loud. Yeah. We were real loud. So thanks to all the parents that let us be the Ari's parents, my parents, Tom's parents. Like, God, I can't even imagine. That was awesome.
I got one more thing to ask you guys, and this is something that I don't really understand that I have to know. How come none of the Sun Monkeys stuff is available out there online? Like, why is there no Sun Monkeys Bandcamp? Why are there no, shows up on YouTube? I mean, there has to be stuff out there.
There's
lots of people must have asked you over the years.
Honestly, I don't know that we think about it all the time. Like, we just kind of after Sun Monkeys, we went and did other things and just kind of moved on. And at the time, I mean, the internet wasn't really even a real thing at that point. Like, when I first moved to Georgia, it was like dial-up and garbage, you know what I mean? And, I mean, we made a MySpace page when MySpace, was something. But I just don't think, I mean, we were just all doing other stuff, like I don't really go back and listen to it all the time. Like, every now and then somebody will come to my house and they'll want to hear something and I'll pull something out to let them hear it because they're like, oh, I haven't heard of Sun Monkey, anything besides this in a long time. And I do have some stuff, so I'll play them some stuff if they want, but like, I don't really listen to it a lot. I didn't even really listen to it a lot when we were doing it, other than when we were doing it. It just, I don't know. I mean,
but you are right, for the sake of like cataloging it and at least having it put somewhere. I mean, you're totally right that it should just be at least shelved somewhere for like access for
Yeah, especially the stuff that's recorded. Like, we have, somewhere floating out there between the band members, there's practices that are on cassettes where we're writing the songs. We recorded stuff a lot.
And I know you've asked for any Jam for Man stuff. We have one Jam for Man on video.
And we have the Jam for Man, there's a CD of the one Jam for Man you gave me.
So we do have stuff, and honestly, it just needs to be digitized. It needs to be put down in ones and zeros.
Edited.
I'll start a Kickstarter, like whatever we need to do. I mean, I'll throw in as much money as you guys need to get that done.
No, we didn't expect you to do anything like that. But I'm just saying, yeah, it definitely needs to be done. I mean, just for our own sake too. It's like we've just had it, and we definitely need to do that. But now it's like, and we don't want the tapes to start disintegrating and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the tapes that I have, it's not like I necessarily listen to the stuff on the original tapes. I mean, I digitized those a long time ago. So I have, badly digitized versions of my tapes, that are in my computer and that I play on my iPhone and stuff like that. But it would be nice, fidelity-wise to have those original, the original recordings digitized. I'm sure that they would sound a million times better.
I don't know, bro. I think this part of the conversation reminds me of a funny story, and I'm not going to say any names to protect the people that are behind the story, but I asked one of the members of the band one time, I was like, hey, when we left that thing, you had the original DAT tape. Do you still have that? And he said, no, I recorded over it one night with my other band. I mean, but that's the thing, like, we were always kind of looking for new stuff and doing new stuff. Like, a lot of the stuff, like Andy, when we first started talking years ago, you sent me copies of our albums. I didn't even have them anymore. I didn't have a copy. And you sent them to me, so thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, they're your albums.
We're just kind of constantly moving, I guess. But I have to, since a lot of this is Jam for Man based, can I tell one really funny Jam for Man story?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So we're playing Jam for Man, and we're playing the show, and we had people kept trying to get up on the stage, and the one thing at Jam for Man that year, they told us they didn't want stage diving or any of that kind of stuff. So we had this guy, Jason, blocking people from getting on the stage and stuff, and he's an awesome guy, Jason Mitten, another guy that was around a lot, one of Pete's really good friends that kind of we became friends with through Pete. But at some point in the show, towards the end, this girl gets past him, runs up, rips my shirt off, and scratches the hell out of me. Just scratch, my whole back was bleeding, it was bleeding, it was crazy. And then, that was one of the first times my parents ever came to see us live. And my mom, like, after the show, like, we went back into the backstage area and we're talking to the bands for a little bit. And then I was like, I'm going to go tell my parents goodbye, you know. And I went out and my mom was like, I'll never come see you again. She was like, what was that? And I'm like, I have no clue, man. And Jason didn't, I remember he picked this girl up and takes her off and stuff. I have no clue who that was, what the point of the whole thing was. He ripped my shirt off, took his crap out of me.
Do you remember putting on, like, a skateboarding helmet and then stage diving inside Pete's bass drum at the end of the show?
Well, they said no stage diving. But yeah, I just remember that. Like, it was that was a weird Jam for Man moment. And then the one Jam for Man, I remember we ended with Pete just started playing some drum thing, and me and him are like saying a bunch of stuff. Yeah, like that was a fun show. Jam for Mans were always fun. I mean, it was cool because all the bands around at the time were people we were already playing shows with or were about to start playing shows with. I mean, those shows were really good, and I would say the times that with Some Monkeys, we did so many shows that were for charity and stuff, and I think the one of the times we made the most money in a show, we gave it all to a kid at my school whose house caught on fire, and his family had passed away, and the dad had lived, and we gave all the money to him. Like, we were just very, I mean, but it was easy to be that way because of who we are, but also because DC was like that. I mean, we were going to tons of charity shows. Like, when you're going to see Fugazi and all these bands, it's very influential to, like, hey, the show costs $5, and besides that, we're giving all the money away. you know, like, and that was a huge influence on our band of how we were going to operate. You know, like, we wanted to do charity shows and help out, and Jam for Man was one of the first. I mean, I think a break for us. I think that's where a lot of people probably really saw us for the first time for real was there, and then from there it just kind of grew.
It was one of the coolest. Setups. But and then come full circle, man. Again, Jam for Man, especially, but with other shows, the camaraderie with the other bands in the area. Everyone knew who they were. Necessarily, they didn't play shows with them, but you know, being put on a bill with some of these, you know, bands and being able to play with them was just an excellent experience, you know, at the time, and you know, good cause. And good to just be a part of it with these other, you know, local icons that were doing their thing and making their own waves. It was just really good vibes all the way around. So the whole Jam for Man experience was just all positive, man.
Oh yeah, I remember when we found out that we were going to play with AVAIL, me and Tom being in his Chevette. He had a Chevette at the time. Right? That was the car he had. We were driving around, and we were, like, seriously, windows down, just screaming and yelling. I mean, we were so happy that we were going to play a show with AVAIL. Like, we looked up to them so much and just thought that was going to be the greatest thing ever. Like, we were just like, holy shit, you know? We've been going to see this band, and now we're going to play with this band. And we really, really liked them. So I just remember that being super cool. And then from then on, Jam for Man could ask us to make peanut butter sandwiches, and we would have been out there doing it.
Yeah.
It was just like, thanks. You know, you put us on this bill. I mean, that's great. So yeah, if you can get something going with that, that would be great. And I'm sure tons of bands, not only some of the older bands from actually back then, but some of the new bands now, I think, would be wanting to do it. I mean, I think
which deserve as much respect as old school, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, if you do a Jam for Man, I feel like you've got to include some of the teenage bands, because to me that was what it was about. It was like a showcase for a bunch of teenage bands, and there's still bands around, you know, that need showcasing, especially here, because
that's a good point.
Yeah, no, it's hard when you're 16 or 17 to go get a gig in DC. You know what I mean? Like, it's like us playing DC Space was like a coup. You know, like that to me was crazy. I mean, we played there one night, the night after Shudder to Think played, and I was freaking out. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, Shudder to Think was just here, you know, playing here last night, and now we're doing it. You know, and it was great. But those opportunities weren't as up, like it wasn't that prevalent when we were that young. You're a risk at a nightclub when you're 17, you know, especially if they're serving alcohol. So like So if we could find if you do it, I would say throw some young bands on the bill and give them a shot too, because they need it. They deserve it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys might have to scout out those young bands for me. Find out what's going on with the best band coming out of like South Lake and Oakton, and those schools is today. Also, I don't know about getting AVAIL to play. That seems like a long shot at this point.
But the AVAIL too. When we played with them, we did their song Bob's Crew, and we asked them when we played with them if it was okay if we played it, because we're playing with them now,
And we did it because at the time my stepfather was dying of lung cancer, and his name was Bob, so we were like, we're going to rock out Bob's Crew. Not that that's what it's about, but we ended up rocking the song.
Yeah, we asked them if we could play it before the show, and
Yeah.
and I can't remember which guy in the band said it, but whoever it was,
He was Brian.
Okay, he was like, you can have it. You can have that song.
Yeah, he was like
he lets me use it as the theme song now. That's like our new theme song to the show.
Yeah, and it was just a great moment because, like I said, I mean, we looked up to their band so much and just thought they were just awesome, and so many of the bands are awesome, But when that night when we asked that, and that was said, like, I mean that kind of sums up the scene in and of itself, because we weren't hanging out with them all the time or anything. We didn't really know them like that, but it was just a cool moment in our band, I think.
He actually told me he was honored that you guys did it.
Yeah, I mean, we were honored to be able to do it.
Totally.
And we still played it, and we did, not to keep going on AVAIL, but we did a show with them one night in Richmond at this house party, and it was crazy. Like when you think of crazy parties, like movie party kind of looking stuff, this was one of those,
Times 10.
Yeah, it was like crazy. There's like people doing tattoos on the third floor. The middle floor is just a straight up party. Kegs are outside. The bands are in the basement. The basement was like an unfinished basement.
Low ceiling
with chicken wire all around the band. And so the band is in this chicken wire fencing. And we're playing our show, and some of the guys in AVAIL came up and might have stuck something through the chicken wire fence. That people were like, oh my God. And then the next thing I know, Pete was our drummer at the time, and I'm standing there singing, the song's still going on, and I get tackled to the floor like crazy, like just completely destroyed. And it's Pete, and he's naked, or has his pants down and no shirt on, because he rarely drums with a shirt, And then so the show was crazy. After the show, we're out packing our stuff, our gear up to leave. And the party was really loud, and we're on an alley, and some guy's at the end of the alley, and you just see his hand point up in the air, and he starts shooting the gun up in the air. The whole night was just absolute insanity.
And there's like 150 people out in the alley, and then all of a sudden everyone's like stuck in heads. It's like, what the fuck is going on, man?
Yeah, it was insane. But a great memory. Great
memory. Awesome night.
Awesome show.
For playing in a tiny, dank basement with chicken wire, with strange stuff going on, tattoos being delivered on the third floor, man. That was a good night with AVAIL, man.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Those are the exact kind of stories that you want to have and you want to be telling, 20, 30 years later after the fact.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's so many crazy stories with all I'm sure all the bands around that time, but I mean, for us, I think the craziest stories of bands together would probably be our time playing with Mary Jane a lot with Josh's old band before we stole Josh.
Mm-hmm.
And also the time that we were with the Vehicle Works, because we just did a lot of stuff together as bands. It wasn't just the shows. We hung out. We would have, after hours get-togethers and stuff like that, and just I don't know. It wasn't. It was friendship. It was pushing each other. It was listening to new music, but it wasn't just pushing ourselves in music. It was like pushing ourselves in life. Like we were like very. Everybody had their own little thing, and we all just took little nuggets, from every little thing that everybody did, and put them around ourselves. And those times were really, really good times. I mean, I do think there was a point with both of those hangouts, though, with Mary Jane and with Vehicle Birth, where there was a moment where the guys in the band were like, I used to hang out with Timmy a lot and used to hang out with Sam, the singer of Mary Jane, a lot. Tim was the singer from Vehicle Birth, where it was like, maybe you guys are hanging out too much. Maybe you guys are, like, coming back to like slow your roll a little bit, guys. But we just, we all enjoyed each other's company a lot. Those were fun times in the band. Like, when we could link up with some bands and get on these runs of shows for, 4, 5, 6 months, where most of the shows were the same couple bands together, we kind of had a dynamic going of how we liked everything to go, and there was no hiccups, and, nobody was going to argue about money, of which there was not much. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it wasn't a big deal. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it was as awesome to be a monkey as it seemed like it was.
I would say, I'll be honest, it's probably awesomer than we've let on tonight.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, no, it's great. I mean, it was a great time. I really lucked out because I initially turned down Tom several times, and then they just showed up at my house. You guys showed up that one night and said, "You're coming with me. You're coming with us." And I just said, all right, and did it. And then instantly, I mean, within the first 20 minutes, we knew, like, okay, well, Clay's not the drummer because he's got his own band. We need a drummer.
But this is it.
But this is it. Like, this is happening now. There's no turning back after that. And we just knew. And then from then on, I mean, it was just a good time. I would say, 90% of the time, things were good. And we just enjoyed what we were doing. But yeah, shout out to everybody that was ever in the band. I mean, Rashaad, Josh, Aaron, Pete, Stevie, Ari, Crick, Tom, Laura, Matt, the guy that was living with Rashaad.
Adam.
Yeah, Adam. He played congos with us played percussion and stuff for a little while. I mean, and there's other people that stopped through along the way, but like I said, we were constantly able to keep a good rotation of people that just allowed us to do what we wanted to do, because some people would have never wanted to be in a band that wanted to go in that many directions. I mean, it's just not for everybody,
Well, it was for me. And
yeah, it was for me too.
It made a big impact on me. It made a big difference in my life. So,
do that, and then that means a whole lot, man. I appreciate that being said, and it also goes out to just like the whole title of the show, man. Jams for Man. The concert Jam for Man is shout out to all the other crews that were out there, all the other bands. It's part in this era with us. It was just fucking rad. You know what I'm saying? It was awesome. So, like, word to all of you all who were part of that, because it definitely was a force that was flying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and even like with that poster, like I don't know if every band on that poster actually was at Jam for Man, or some of them I think were just bands around from the time, right? And I think that if that's the case, that's cool too, because there was so many bands. Like, you can't fit every band on a bill, like it just is never going to happen. But there was so many like cool bands around, and we just appreciated being around them, whether it was our kind of music or whether we liked it or not, or they liked us or not. I think we all appreciated, that we were out there trying to do something. I think that was the big thing, is just get out and just do it.